Brent and Nancy were good friends with the mayor. They'd always voted for him and helped out in every political campaign. All the neighbors knew that this particular couple were Mr. Mayor's top two fans. Right next door to Brent and Nancy, though, was old Mr. Perkins, who hated the mayor. He'd always hated him, and very outspokenly so. Nothing the mayor ever did was right as far as Mr. Perkins was concerned. If gas prices went up, if buses ran late, even if a dog ran across his lawn or made any other kind of mistake, he was sure it was the mayor's fault. Of course, he jabbed at Brent and Nancy about their friend, the mayor, at every opportunity. Well, one day a rainstorm hit the town. And this was the deluge of the century. Half the buildings in town were swept right out to sea. Nancy and Brent and old Mr. Perkins found themselves homeless and sleeping in a shelter. But as soon as the rain stopped, the mayor went on TV and announced in the newspaper that funds were available to rebuild all the lost homes. Everyone had to fill out an application, of course, and the checks would be issued just as soon as possible. Now, Brent and Nancy were sure they had it made. After all, they were the mayor's best friends. They got their application in immediately, of course, and sat back to wait, comfortably trusting in their relationship. At the same time, they had to say to themselves, boy, poor old Mr. Perkins. After so many years of criticizing the mayor and picketing City Hall and writing those nasty letters to the editor, he's about to get his just reward. I wonder if he even bothered to send in an application. They fully expected that the mayor's sworn number one enemy might just have to live out his remaining days in a Boy Scout tent in the swampy mud. So a week went by. No check for Brent and Nancy. 2 weeks. A month. They were still living in a shelter while they could see new homes going up all over town. Then one day they got the shock of their lives. There on the front pages of the newspaper was a picture of guess who? Old Mr. Perkins. And he was standing in front of his brand new home. Brent and Nancy rushed right over, and sure enough, Mr. Perkins was moving things back into his new house. Incredibly, as soon as he saw them, he started right in and complaining again. If your friend the mayor had been on top of things and had the dam repaired, we'd never have gotten in this mess. And look how long I had to wait. My check didn't come in for over a week, and so on. Well, the young couple just about choked on their tongues. A week? When did you put in your application, they asked. I never did, the old man grunted. Mayor ought to know whose homes are gone. By the way, I suppose the two of you were the very first ones to get reimbursed, seeing as how you're such thick friends with that old crook. Why haven't you started to rebuild? There was a long silence. And finally, Brent and Nancy had to confess to this mayor-hating old grouch that their friend, the mayor, their best friend, hadn't yet sent them their money. As they walked away, they could hear the old man's cackling laughter ringing in their ears. Well, this story you've just heard is a modern-day parable borrowed with deep gratitude from a wonderful book entitled The Answer is Prayer by Pastor Morris Venden, my former associate and colleague on the broadcast. In recent months, I've been kind of grateful that Maury, as many of us knew him, was a longtime friend and broadcast speaker because I've been using several of his best stories. So we continue in our 10-part series, A Suitcase Full of Faith. And we stumble into a very painful and very real faith dilemma. Here it is. How do we react when God's enemies seem to get all the favors, all the breaks, while those who are following God and trusting God struggle every step of the way? Why is it that old Mr. Perkins, who hates the mayor and has opposed the mayor at every turn, gets his emergency check immediately without even asking for it? And Brent and Nancy, who've been loyal, supportive friends of that same mayor and who have a trust relationship with the mayor, wait and wait and wait, seemingly ignored. The prophet Jeremiah had a few sour grape words to say to the Lord on this very topic. Let's go to the transcript in Jeremiah chapter 12. You're always righteous, O Lord, when I bring a case before you. Yet I would speak with you about your justice. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all the faithless live at ease? In verse 2, he adds, you're always on their lips, but far from their hearts. He's almost saying, Lord, you're being succored. You're sending all the best Christmas presents to the hypocrites. Dr. Hans Larendel, longtime professor of theology and Christian philosophy at Andrews University in Michigan, my seminary professor, in one of his sermons gives a modern-day twist to a very similar chapter. Psalm 73 is called a Psalm of Asaph, and boy, does he have the very same complaint as our friends Brent and Nancy. Notice this. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold. For I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from the burdens common to man. They are not plagued with human ills. Well, a few verses down, the gripe session continues. This is what the wicked are like, always carefree. They increase in wealth. And then he adds, surely in vain have I kept my heart pure. In vain have I washed my hands in innocence. Well, if you read the whole chapter right to the end, it comes down to the finale in verse 28. Asaph comes to some healthy conclusions about the benefits of serving God. But here on this earth, in this temporary life, it's hard to take it when we see sinners and criminals riding in limousines, movie stars who epitomize promiscuity and a godless lifestyle go swimming in champagne and have helicopters from lifestyles of the rich and famous buzz their houses every night. How come? We want to know. Why does the mayor treat his sworn enemies better than his friends? Why does God let so much sunshine land on the wicked as described in Matthew chapter 5? Along with Asaph, we feel like we're beginning to slip in a sea of doubt. We don't understand it. In fact, that almost seems to be one of the predominant theme psalms in the book of Psalms. On almost every page, King David cries out, Lord, why aren't you a little more zealous about crushing my enemies? Please, Lord, whack them, kill them, pulverize them. You know, we expect when we enter into a trust relationship with God and become His friend, that we'll be blessed in a tangible way. And sometimes we are. But we become confused when God also blesses His enemies, who sometimes are our enemies too. And we become especially filled with consternation and resentment when He blesses them more than He blesses us. Have you ever read the line also in Matthew chapter 5 where Jesus says, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you? Is God simply following His own advice here? Abe Lincoln, so the story goes, once had an aide ask him, Mr. President, why are you so gracious to your enemies? You're always trying to make friends with them. Why don't you destroy them? And the president replied, have I not destroyed my enemies if they have become my friends? This leads us to a very exciting faith doctrine. Let me quote directly from Pastor Venden's parable about our young couple. If Brent and Nancy were truly friends with the mayor, would they be willing to wait for their turn, even if it wasn't fair, while the mayor did everything he could to become friends with Mr. Perkins? Would they be willing to give up their rights as the mayor's friend so that those who were watching could see that the mayor wasn't playing favorites? That's a breathtaking challenge, isn't it? Venden then translates that into a dramatic bit of cosmic theater. Is it possible that your friend, the God of the universe, might need the same support from his friends? Is it possible that because of the accusations of the enemy, he sometimes allows his friends to wait so it will be apparent to the entire universe that his friends truly love him for himself and not just for what they hope to get out of him? It would be wonderful, don't you think? If we could be such close friends of God that he'd know he would trust us, that we would trust him, while he gives extra blessings to his enemies in order to save some of them. What a huge honor to be that kind of friend, to have that kind of faith. And so have faith in God when nothing's on your plate. Have faith in God when blessings come too late. Have faith in God. His closest friends can wait. Have faith, dear friend, in God.